Hello, everybody. Welcome, heroes. Welcome to Zeros on Heroes, just trying to look like you. My name is Mike Mercadal. With me, as always, is
Will Watkins.
Will Watkins. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on Sunday morning Pacific time, but Sunday afternoon Eastern time, because we are, in fact, bi-coastal. Uh,
Mm.
we span the United States. Will we span the continent?
We are bicoastal. We have sex with anybody on either coast.
That is what that means.
Hmm.
We don't discriminate here. We try not to. That's kind of our thing. This is just trying to look like you, where we do not discriminate in people, anyone wanting to improve their lives, mind, body, and community.
Unless you
Uh,
do CrossFit, go fuck yourself.
we,
Just
you
kidding.
know what?
CrossFit's fine. You know.
You know, it's not fine. It's not fine. Let's not. Come on. It's not that it's not fine. It's we do not turn away that we love the sin or hate the sin.
Yeah.
That bullshit. No, we are trying to
It's
do
like
our best.
if you want to stay up till midnight to listen to the new Taylor Swift album, you know, I think it's ridiculous, but it's your thing. Have fun with it. It
Just
brings you
because it's
joy.
just because it's not my thing doesn't mean it can't be your thing. Everybody's got their things. We do not judge. We're bringing some positivity into the self-improvement fit slash health slash fitness space. And if you are watching us for the first time, welcome. Thank you. You can go back and find us at Mike Mercadal and at William A. Watkins on all social media. At Zeros on Heroes is the social media for the show, and it will be expanding as people join us, because we're going to keep doing this whether you like it or not. I know that sounds like a threat, but it's more like we are motivated to do this for ourselves.
Yeah.
And speaking
And you can
of,
you can watch it later, but if you want to participate,
you got
do
to
the
do it.
chat thing.
You got to do it now. You got to stay tuned for when we go live and join us in the chat. We welcome any questions, comments, sharing, concerns, everything, as long as you're bring your A game. You know what I'm saying? Bring your
Hmm.
best.
Well, I'm
Bring.
out. I'm out then. I'm out. This is
Well, are you struggling to bring your best today? Is that something that's not gonna
I'm
be
a little,
possible? How are you
I'm a,
feeling today?
I'm a little lethargic. I'm a little sleepy, but that's me preaching to the choir here. Not to compare trauma or anything, but I know you're a little fatigued as well.
I am a night shift employee at the hospital
Hmm.
in which I work, and I worked last night slash this morning when I got home, and it's one of those things where I don't know if I've ever been able to pull it off, or I'm just muscling through, and like oh, I just need a couple hours sleep and then I can go about my day. I don't know
Hmm.
if we've talked on here in previous episodes about how uh vital and like delicious sleep is, and especially when it's like a hot commodity. There's nothing more torturous than when there's some external reason why you can't sleep, like construction or a crying baby or a barking dog or whatever, and you're desperate just to get some sleep. But I'm doing that electively,
Yeah.
and I wonder, there's study after study that says it's bad for you.
Yeah, yeah. It's like it lowers your, it takes like 3 years off your lifespan if you work nights or whatever it is. And
But
I
those are
even
off the end, and those suck anyway. The
there was also the study where it was the recent one where it was about like artificial sweeteners and how
Yeah.
oh, it's a carcinogen or whatever, but it's like it's at the same threat level. It's actually below the threat level of not getting enough sleep. Like if you where it's like
I'm
apples not
worse.
getting enough sleep and
Right.
charred meat, and then below that is sugar-free beverages. But
Meats
like
for
get
sweet
but like not getting enough sleep is
is
like
up there. Yeah.
is up
Now,
there.
I will say this: I do feel like I get enough, according to my watch or any other fitness tracker. I'm meeting my goals like 90% of the time. Which, before I took sleep seriously with my night shift job, what I was not doing. I was going
Mm,
to sleep later, waking up earlier, like, trying to force naps in the middle of the day because I was working at. I used to work, 7 a.m. shift, classic hospital schedule.
mm.
You wake up early, but that alarm clock, that falling asleep early, is like the hard part.
Yeah, yeah.
And they tell you, oh, you just got to get more sleep, and then you're laying in bed at 8 o'clock at night, like, any minute now, I'm gonna do the thing that I need to be doing. I'm gonna get the sleep that I need, and the only real way to get more sleep is to be tired when it's time to go to bed. I don't know if that makes sense, or at least that's
Yeah.
how it makes sense to me.
There's a thing that people suggest, various fitness influencers and doctors and stuff, which is if you know you need to get a lot of sleep that night or go to sleep early, whatever it
Mm,
is to just completely demolish yourself as early in the day as possible.
right,
So it's like wake up, go to the gym, do a leg day, like completely fatigue your system, burn out your CNS, so that like
right.
by the time it's time you want to go to sleep, you're like I'm done.
It's basically that like you know you know how they go, your parents were horribly toxic and they'd be like, I'll give you something to cry about,
Yeah, yeah,
right? Where it's like you got to give your body something to sleep about. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like, you gotta. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna exhaust myself before, and then your body is like, please, I'll put you to sleep. Thank you. Yes, you've proven your point. Stop running up these hills. Stop doing these push-ups. We'll be fine.
Yeah,
Um,
so I saw a thing too where it's like, it's always like, oh, take some Benadryl or some NyQuil and that'll help you go to sleep. Turns out, the sleep you get is not a good sleep, where it's not as good a sleep as you could get. They
yes,
say it's the equivalent of when you get really drunk and you pass out. That's not a good sleep you get. It's basically the same thing where your body isn't like doing the true recuperation rejuvenation it needs. But it
there's
is like,
a
hey, you kind of go to sleep.
yeah, you're unconscious.
Yeah.
There's a quote that I there's a quote that I reference all the time from Patton Oswalt, and it's literally, it's not related, but it feels right, and that's what we are about here. We're all about vibes. We're all about it feels right. We don't know exactly what we're talking about, but we have the best of intentions.
Yeah.
Um, the quote comes from the Comedians of Comedy, the show that was on
Oh
Comedy
yeah,
Central. It
yeah.
was like him and like a couple other people were touring, and like real like nuts and bolts comedy tour stuff. And it was like a documentary series about them. And then he talks about sleeping in hotels as sleep, but being deprived of all of its nutrition. And since I have learned how bad Benadryl actually is for you, that's what I reference all the time, where it's like, Benadryl is a very old drug. It has a lot of side effects, and you talk to any allergist out there, there's better drugs out there for both the sleepiness and the intended use of the drug, which is an antihistamine. Um, it's like an old drug. It crosses the blood-brain barrier. It's not necessary. It's like it like has more of an impact than you realize. But it's the sleep you get is sleep deprived of its nutrition. Like, you don't fully get the rebuilding. Your brain isn't really resting. It's just like it's like the cartoons getting hit over the head with a hammer. You know what I mean? Like, that's literally what it does to your body, where it's like shut it down. Someone pulls the switch, but you're not
You're
actually like resting.
you're a medical person, so I think you may have some basic. No, never
In the
mind.
loosest
Uh,
of terms.
I was watching Fallout. You watched that too, right?
It's on my to watch list, but
Okay.
I'm
Well,
not
this
currently
this
watching.
this isn't going to spoil anything, and it kind of goes along with the larger theme of sci-fi, aliens, anything like that.
Sure.
When you go to those cryogenic tubes in those
Hmm.
sci-fi movies and they sleep for 200 years or whatever it um, is that good sleep? And it is there any sort of similar technology where I could like go to some like cryogenic place and just be like, just give me like 12 hours. I just want like 12 hours in a cryogenic tube.
Okay, the closest we got to it killed Michael Jackson. That so so I need you. I understand the impulse, but we're at Michael Jackson levels of affecting your life, where you hire a doctor to give you medication that isn't prescribed for what it to do something it's not prescribed to do. But they have, like, when we intubate people or whatever, we give, and they're awake, we give paralytics and something to and anesthesia in the reverse order. You give anesthesia first, because if you give a paralytic first, you're fully conscious but paralyzed. It's
Oof.
kind of nightmare inducing. It's also like nightmare inducing what happens when your body actually sleeps. Of like there's the what's the it's a hormone, I think, or there's the body releases a chemical that paralyzes you, because otherwise you'd be acting out your dreams in your
Oh wow.
in your sleep. So that's what night terrors is, and like sleep paralysis and all those things, is that your brain turns on before all of that has worn off. So you're kind of stuck in this like limbo of like, I'm awake but my body is paralyzed, and it's kind of you're constantly balancing those two states. So if you were to go to a doctor and be like, I have trouble sleeping, they kind of are limited in the options. Like, people forget how young medicine is. Like, we only
I,
recently discovered anesthesia to knock you out during surgery, let alone like recreational sleep. So
I
I
love those
mean,
little like Little House on the Prairie things when they need to get the tonsils out and they're like, oh, I'll just have to put you under, and they get like ether and a rag, like there's some
yeah,
sort of like
yeah. Um, I'm trying to look up the discovery of anesthesia. Oh, it was successfully for the first time. It was successfully done in 1846. Okay, so when you think about how old humanity is versus the practice of modern men, they were still doing humors then. They were still using leeches. Like,
yeah.
we just discovered how to make like legit medicine. Like, aspirin is is fairly young, like in the grand scheme of things. So when we're talking about like how we interact with the chemicals in your body, we're still kind of on a humanity scale at the experimental stages. Are we look at stuff from like 50 years ago now and be like, ugh, or like 100 years ago, like, as like archaic. But in 100 years from now, people are going to look at the stuff we do and be like, ugh, you used needles to puncture the skin. What are you,
Yeah, yeah.
savages? Like, it'll be something like that. It'll be, so we're still babies. We're still medicinal babies.
Was that like Back to the Future when he's like, you got to use your hands to play? Like, oh,
It's a baby's toy. But yeah,
wait.
that's how it feels
Yeah, it's
sometimes.
like, oh, you would just shoot radiation into somebody to see their bones? Why didn't you use a adamantium device or whatever?
Yes, why don't you use this thing? And it's amazing how short people's memories are, because if you talk to like any, it's amazing how little the common person knows about how medicine and the medical system and the use and how medication interacts with your body, like how the body works. Like, people, it's amazing how limited that knowledge is, because look at how we talk about fitness, where we're like, what's the right thing to do for building muscle? Literally building strength in your muscles, which we have been doing since there have been muscles, right?
Mm,
Everybody's does it. Like, every species, like, there's a certain amount of strength required, and the stronger you get, the more successful at evolution you've been. You're the product. What's that thing? You're the product of like billions of years of evolution. So, like, act like it, or something like
yeah,
that, is
yeah.
like this motivational thing. It's crazy how little how little we as humanity know about our own human bodies. There's so many
Yeah,
mysteries.
it's like up until like the 1950s or whatever it was, like if you want to do a squat, the way they did it was they had those like where it was like a pole with like the
Mhm.
balls at the end of it,
Yes, those
and
old timey weights.
if you wanted to, you had to lift up one side, turn your entire body sideways, and then do this to get it up there. And then, like, sometime in the 1960s or whatever, somebody was like, hey, do you think it might be easier if we had some sort of rack that we could just Like just like hold it there, and so that way we don't have to
Yeah.
destroy our spine.
That to me is like, I think about like people, like historical figures, like they always talk about like George Washington's wooden teeth or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
Like it was like a nightmarish amalgamation, like a construct of like wood and other people's teeth and horse teeth and like other materials, and then people just put, like, what were the medical conditions of like past historical figures, where I loved this show called The Last Kingdom, and it was all about.
oh
Did you
yeah,
watch
yeah,
that show? And it was, and the King Alfred, which is like one of the like first kings of Wessex and these old places in history, had what they would now consider Crohn's disease, right? So like they were always talked about how sickly he was and frail, and he was very particular about what he ate, and it was like a curse from the Lord because of his mighty brain or whatever, some bullshit. And then you're like, oh, um, he just had Crohn's disease, like he just had diverticulitis or some other like
yeah, yeah.
ulcerative colitis, and then like some other digestive disorder, which now you would treat with a medication or some sort of steroid or anti-inflammatory. And back then it was like cursed from the heavens,
Yeah, yeah.
It's crazy what like everything still feels like so new on us, like medically, on like a human scale, like on a historical scale. It's
Even
kind of weird to think about that.
even like supplements. That's one of the reasons why supplement industry is like so filled with like snake oil and shit.
Mm.
But like one of the most widely used supplements now, one of the most research supplements is creatine monohydrate,
Yeah.
and it's for the it's I mean research is only like 20 years old, if maybe a few years older than that, and it's great. It's great for your body. But the very first few studies were like, oh, if you take it, it's going to destroy your liver and it's going
Yeah.
to make you go bald and all this like fear mongering and stuff. And then it turns out that was nothing. It was just randomness from random studies on rats and rugby players that were
Sure.
also
Yeah.
taking steroids and shit. And it's like and then once everybody realized it was safe, then they were like, and that it's actually a very cheap supplement. We can get a ton of it for very little money. Then this supplement industry was like, well, what if we designed a different kind of creatine that was more expensive and higher? And it turns out they couldn't replicate it. The monohydrate is perfectly as good, if not better, than the more expensive kind. But it's just like that ignorance, and you can turn it into either fear or profit, depending on what your motivation is.
You want to know the most frustrating thing about that? That's literally how the pharmaceutical companies work. A lot of the new drugs. I catch myself. This is the I'm gonna um old man on cloud kind of situation. Old man yells at cloud. The the idea that so pharmaceutical companies, when I'm watching the commercials now, it feels like a movie or like a Saturday Night Live commercial for a drug that is like fake, because
Yeah.
I remember the names from when I was on, like younger, watching these things where it's like when the new drugs, when they were making fun of like Olestra. Remember when Olestra came out,
Oh
and it
yeah,
may
yeah,
cause
yeah.
anal leakage and all the side effects, and now the fact that in this country you can advertise like a prescription medicine to people who can't technically prescribe it is
Yeah.
wild. And then there's the list, there's that joke, like the of all the side effects, like do not taunt happy fun ball. um there's all of those things where it's almost like comedic at this point, because when I'm watching it now, I'm like, this is this fake? Like, how are the, and then you look into it a little bit and you realize a lot of these are based on the fact that copyrights and patents for the names of things are separate from the medicine. And like there's brand names and then generic names, and then there's certain
Hmm.
laws that regulate how long a company can have be the only one that access
Yeah.
the the have access to the drugs, because it's like, how do you copyright a chemical? And but they
Yeah.
do, and there's laws about it, and there's capitalism behind it, and there's fucking profit generation, and then the cycle for the FDA is about every 10 years. So every 10 years there's just happens to be a new version of a drug where it's like, and granted they're better, they do come out and the research says they're better, but then it's like it does, like that's where you get a little, I get a little conspiracy theorist, not like these crunchy hippies that are like super. what do you call it? Like
Anti-vax, all that
and,
shit.
but
Yeah.
like the ones that are like the did you see that one
Oh,
of
the
the ladies?
pharmaceutical industry is coming after us.
It's like yes, but not in the way that you're saying.
Yeah.
Like like you're right. It's like, oh, you're right in a few ways, but in order to dissect the nuance, I have to dive into that cesspool, and I don't want to do that. Like it's almost worth it to be like, okay, you're not harming anyone until all of a sudden you have a following of 1 billion people, and now everyone's
Yeah.
to I saw a video of like the 90s kids, their parents grew up like kind of traumatized by certain diets.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
I don't know if you saw, did you see it? It
Yeah,
was
I
like
shared it. Yeah.
yeah, where it was like, and one of them is the cabbage soup diet and like Weight
Oh,
Watchers and all these things, the cayenne pepper and lemon drink that people were constantly putting making these juices and all stuff, and
the
these
apple
fat.
cider vinegar diet.
And like, yes, the cabbage soup is fine, or the special K diet was the one that I
Yeah.
like forgotten about, but someone reminded me of like at a certain point they were advertising, just eat a bowl of cereal for your meals. And
Yeah.
then it was like, oh, that's the cereal industry telling me to do that.
I think my favorite might have been the Subway diet, where it's like, eat this foot long loaf of bread every meal and you'll lose weight. Oh,
Yeah.
and you'll also go to jail for pedophilia.
Yeah. They're not, is it correlate? What is it? Correlation is not
Causation,
causation.
correlation. Yeah.
Yeah, or whatever it is that, however the saying goes, where it's like, we're not saying it's gonna happen. We're just saying it's related. Exists in the same spectrum of possibility. Um, yeah, there's so much out there when it comes to like, just look at the Benadryl thing, like you know, Claritin and Zyrtec and all the other antihistamines that are out there that are newer cost more in the store. Like if you look, they
Yeah.
cost more. So it's like it's tricky, you know.
Yeah. I mean, there's that thing where you go to like a Sam's Club and you get like generic Zyrtec, and it's like a tenth of the price. And it's like,
Yes,
ah, man.
I'm one of those people. I will say this as a medical professional, like the medicine that we give on the ambulance is the generic. Like
Yeah.
we don't like we give the there's no difference chemically. So if there's anybody ever tells you that, oh, I'm allergic to the generic or something like that, take it with a
Oof.
grain of salt. Like don't hey, to each their own. If you like that's why it bothers me when insurance companies will say that they only cover certain brands.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that's just a deal you made with the pharmaceutical company to make more money on charge more for something. Like it is what it is. And then we're all at the mercy of it. And then insert anti-capitalist rant here, right? Like it's basically like at the point where like we all get it. We all profit generation and all that stuff. But I don't want to dive into that too much because it really does affect me mentally to be like to have all that drilled into my brain as I like when I'm browsing through social media. I have to actively make choices to like stop being mad at capitalism.
Yeah. I have
Yeah,
to go to sleep at 6 p.m. I can't be
I had to go.
starting.
Yeah,
I can't be throwing bricks right now.
yeah. I'm just so tired. I'm just so tired. um, do you? So you, I going back to the no sleep thing. Going back to the getting sleep thing.
Mhm.
I'm at the what we were talking about last week, a couple weeks ago. The listen to my body stage of sleep
Yeah.
because I do have to shift from night shift mode to day shift mode at some point. It's like jet lag. At some point, you have to like just buy into the hours in which you have to operate to be
Yeah.
able to like like move my sleep from this chunk to this chunk and just mess with my circadian rhythm for a day. So it's
Yeah.
easier for to pull off the band-aid. I have coworkers that they exist entirely in the vampire mode
Yeah.
that and they're like, it works for me, I just stay up all night. And I'm like, I don't know if I could. Also, there's somebody else who lives in my house on a completely different schedule than me at those
Yeah.
moments. So like I just have to, I feel like it feels like I gotta get back on my home shift, like the home mode, and then like work mode. Like my iPhone that has focus modes, like that's how I treat this sort of thing.
Yeah. I got a couple guys I work with work insane schedules where they'll work like overnights. two shifts, and then like mornings 2 shifts, and then an afternoon 1 shift, and it's like, Jesus Christ, dude, like what the? And they're like, oh no, I'm used to it by now. It's like, no, you're not. No,
You
you're
know,
not.
I
This is
do
like the
get it.
frog doesn't jump out of the boiling water because it's like
Yeah.
slowly boiling. It's like, ah, I'm fine. Oh, it's like those
I
dark circles under your eyes. Do
I
not say
do
that.
I do understand their mindset though, but it's almost like we're also not meant to work 9 to 5, 40 hours a week, and we push past those limits too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I also wasn't supposed to wake up at 5 o'clock every morning to go to work. From you know what I mean? You're supposed to like we're all like modern life requires a little bit of concession to sleep, which is why we're all so fucking tired all the time.
Yeah, isn't the thing like
So I
a
get it.
study after study says that people under the age of 18 or whatever do their best work from noon till 7 or whatever it is, but for some reason we always make school start at 7 a.m.
Yes.
But it's like if you just put school back 5 more hours, you'll have better students who are learning better. Their minds will be focused. But instead, they're gonna you have all their focus on
Yeah, yeah.
afternoon cartoons or their football team or whatever it is.
Well, athletics are more important than academics. That's just that's what I was taught, and that's what I'm going to teach my kids.
Oh man,
And then
great
perpetuating the cycle, blah blah blah.
great analogy from my life is my senior year. They fired our drama teacher
Mm,
in high school, and then they kicked us all out of the drama room, and we had to combine with the chorus room, and then they turned the drama room into a new weight room that they gave to the football players, and it was like,
nice.
ah.
Yeah, nice. I as a football player, good. We don't need those arts. Get the hell out of here with that bullshit. No, it's kind of crazy. Like we do harp on it a lot, but it is kind of crazy how much you're the like. I want to say high school. And the more okay. Let me back up here. Let me gather my brain here for a second because it is not just about like academics or athletics or whatever. It's amazing how many people never leave high school. And then you
Yeah.
look at Congress and you're like, oh, that's basically what you're just watching. Whenever anybody is like a piece of shit or having trouble, like well, there's something that doesn't make sense. It's like, oh, the people who are making these choices never left high school.
Mhm.
They never stopped the social dynamics that you learn in high school, the cliques, the external validation, the deferring to authority even when without like when they don't deserve it. Like you never questioning authority is what I'm saying. You're they're deferring to a time when like if I think about the times I've embarrassed about things that I did, like a thought processes that I still have that I've carried over from high school trauma, and
Yeah, yeah.
I think about it like I'm letting teenage me dictate adult me's actions, and I'm like, who
Mhm.
the fuck would listen to a teenager as an like, you know what I mean? Like, would you listen to a 17-year-old or 16-year-old now to guide your entire life? Of course not. So why are you
Yeah.
letting a 16-year-old you who learned the behaviors in high school carry on into your adult life? Like it's like a thing every time I mention. I'm like, oh, this is teen me trying to make decisions for adult me. It kind of we were talking about this. We talk about we sort of like discuss what we want to talk about on the show briefly. Like we have this kind of note that we share and we put stuff in there. And there
Yeah.
was a thing that I saw that a post where it was one of these videos about like some girl was like uh if like my husband's 39 and I just got back from the store with dino nuggets or
Oh
whatever,
yeah, 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 yeah.
and then someone's response was like I experienced the joy of like, and then he said a thing of like men don't grow up, they grow older. I
Yeah.
don't know what the
Yeah,
wordplay I
that
would
was
use
it.
in.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't know what the wordplay I would use, but I think it's more grown up to continue to experience joy than to adhere to something you did as a teenager the illusion of what you thought grown-ups were.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
That's the thing of I hate ties,
Mm,
like neckties, because it serves no purpose. It
no.
originally started when people had cloaks and they needed to tie their cloak and their blouse or whatever it is together. It serves no purpose as a piece of your clothing. And so it's the same thing of like, what's the difference between regular shaped nuggets and dino nuggets? It's the same exact
Yeah,
chicken mush that's formed
right.
into a shape. It's just that this shape is oblong versus this one looks like a Tyrannosaurus. It's the
And
same thing,
what my
except it's fun.
except it's fun. That's the thing, is that at a certain point, and this is where you start to like get into like the boomer culture of it all, where it's like at some point, like I'm married, I love my wife, and you go back a few generations, and every joke, every experience about married life was that I hate my wife. And I'm like, why? What is marriage then to you? Like, why is there a whole generation of people that think that marriage or relationships is all about being like surveilled, like there being someone like fucking a cop is watching you in your house and you're not allowed to have any fun. That's what the whole generation of comedy was about. Like, my wife sucks, and I'm like, that has informed a lot of people that
Yeah,
it's like a weird thing for people to be like, my wife and I, we went to a wedding. Our friends got married in Mexico. We had to give a little speech. And a big part of the speech was like, marriage is not hard. That's a myth. Like, if you're meant to be together, the shit's kind of easy. You know what I mean? There's just someone in your house all that loves you. And the hardest part is like trying to figure out what to eat. Like, the marriage part should not be that difficult
yeah,
when you really care about it. The problem is, I think that all of this old thinking tricked everyone into thinking adult life was supposed to be a job you hate and a wife you tolerate who tolerates you, so that
yeah,
you could have kids that you take on vacation 2 weeks a year, and the rest of the other 50 weeks a year you're just pissed off all the time.
yeah,
It's like, so you could go play golf on the weekends and get away from your, like, how about the other days of the week? Like, it doesn't make sense. You're living for the minimum as opposed to the majority. I don't
yeah.
get it.
That's I remember when I got married. Every guy over the age of 50 was like, I mean, one even handed me a cup that was like, "Happy wife, happy life." Just say yes, just say I do, or whatever it is, and it's like, what fucking life did you live?
Hey, it's like, are you all right? Like, and like the advice you get, it's like, welcome to married life. Now you can't do this, that, and the other. And I'm like, well, first, like you can't. The first one was always funny to me because the bachelor party,
Yeah,
that idea of a bachelor party feels so antiquated to me and kind of gross, where I'm
yeah,
just like, I don't want this. I don't know I don't know how your relationship is, that the last thing you want to do as a single, you're not even single, you're just not married yet, is to go be this degenerate. Is that like a goal for you, to just go cheat on your wife in some form? It's
yeah,
on the spectrum of cheating, you're on there at least. If it's something your wife would disapprove of, or you have to keep a secret, it's like,
yeah.
what kind of weird blackmail initiation do other married guys put it for? Like, what is dumb thing? I don't know. It's just one of those things where it's like, at what point were you trained that adult life is supposed to be sad, and boring, and not have some kind of whimsy in it, like not have any fun.
I do think there might be some sort of correlation with, my wife won't stop nagging me. From the 1960s or 70s or 80s, whatever it is. But it's like, is she asking for rights? Is that what she's nagging you about?
She's nagging you about, yeah. Is she asking
She wants to vote.
this equality, this rearing its ugly head again? What a weird request for her to be.
Uh, she wants her own credit card. She wants her own bank account. I give her $50 a week to go to the grocery store, and she wants more to get her hair done.
It's kind of like, whenever somebody, like, all of this trad wife, all of these alpha males,
Yeah, yeah,
it's kind of like one of those things where it's like, oh, you're that weak of a commodity that you have to take away the freedom of choice from the people that you're trying to trick into dating you, like getting into a relationship, And there's always some, like, if you start venturing into those creepy incelly areas of the internet, which pop up on social media because for some reason that is what the algorithm feeds men, is
Yeah.
it's so gross. Like, I hope we get fed to people who want to see us and like get something good out of this, because you get fed so many of these like Jordan Petersons, these Andrew Tates, these guys where it's like, if you take a second to scratch at it's just smacks, just reeks of this like insecurity, this like self like hate, like you invalidate yourself, and like, if you have to, it's that whole thing of like, in athletics, like, if you have to tell someone you're the goat, you're not the goat. The world decides who's good at things based on performance and like how you present yourself, not the other way around, you know.
Yeah.
That's the part. All these guys want a participation trophy for being born in like as a cishet male.
Yeah. Yeah.
The participation trophy of like, what, we should be able to have sex. It's like, I don't think you understand how modernity works, where you have to earn that sort of thing. You have to birds have to have really nice feathers and do dances and build nests, and all you saying you were born with that privilege? Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. I
You better
love
than a
the.
bird? I think not.
I'll shit on you. How about that?
Yeah.
One of my favorite things about those guys is because I get it all the time because I look at all the fitness videos and the blah blah
Yeah.
blah. Then next thing you know, it's the Jordan Peterson and blah blah blah. But I
So gross.
love the fitness bros who are self-proclaimed alpha males,
Hmm.
but then they, I'm built different. I was born I was born a beast. And then they also talk about how they're taking testosterone replacement therapy at the age of
Yeah.
25, and it's
Mhm.
like you are literally saying you need gender affirming care because you're not producing enough male hormone.
Yeah.
You are admitting you're not an alpha male naturally. You have to
Right. Yeah.
take these extra steps to be the beast or whatever it is you want to be. It's like, I don't know, man. I think women should have the right to vote and dye their hair whatever color they want, and my dick
What?
works fine.
Yeah,
So
that's so funny that you're just like, I don't, I don't, I don't know, I don't know. The people who I think of like as alpha males and all that stuff, I don't think of that. And the people who like like think of as strong, we'll say, people who I think of like as powerful are usually like the nicest people. Like, they're usually kind, they usually build the community around them, like that, like they're not afraid to ask for help, because how much, like, one person can only be as strong as one person can be, but if you get a group it still takes two people to move a piano, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
I
that's
don't,
great.
like it's just like such a weird fixation that these guys have on the internet, where it's like, hey, do you know that we don't see you as you want to be seen, because
Yeah,
of you, not because of the society, because you are presenting something that is so easy to see through, so
my
dumb.
favorite thing about that example of this is when there was this photo going around of this huge, muscly, jacked bodybuilder, and it was like, if this guy slaps your girl, what do you? Or if this guy slaps your mom, what are you doing? And then the actual guy who's in the photo found the meme and was like, "Hi, I'm the guy in this photo. I love my mom, and I would never
He's
disrespect your mom." And it's like, yeah, it's the thing of like a reason why so many people are scared to go to the gym is because they're like, there's gonna be all these muscly guys in there who are gonna slap my mom and make fun of me if I'm not doing the form right, blah blah blah. But that's like all those wannabe alpha males, the Ben Shapiro's who whine constantly, those guys. Like, but in
so
real life, if you go to the
stupid.
gym, it's so supportive.
It
Where it's
really is. Like, it really is just trying to look like you. Everybody's like, really. I saw a video of this. A girl was filming herself doing some sort of a power, like a bench workout, and some guy, like, you could see he was like, he was looking, and then people in the comments, you could see people who didn't watch the video all the way because they start shitting on the guy. Oh, look how he's creepy. He's looking. She fails. She can't get the lift, and he immediately jumps up and he picks up and he spots her, and he's like vigilant to help, like clearly
yeah,
seeing, like, and then it turns out that they knew each other, and they're like friends or whatever. But like, the whole point is that people make the assumption it's usually the people outside of the circle talking the most shit and misrepresenting what happens inside. Like the dudes who are alpha males are not in circles where they are respected because
Yeah.
they feel like they constantly have to fight for it. It's like, hey, maybe you should change the circle of people you have around you if you're constantly fighting to survive. You know, better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. It's like, hey, are you in a garden? Do you think of yourself as in a war? You know, like we are all equal in that we are all cannon fodder for the, you know, like we are all just one draft away from being the same boot camp private. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we are all in the same boat, you know. So relax. You're not in a war. You're just at Whole Foods. You know what I mean? Like you're not who in the situation you think you are.
That's
And
another
that
thing too, is when there's a large group or a group of dudes who all claim to be alpha males. It's like you don't understand the concept of an alpha male because that means only one of you in that group can be an alpha male, yet you're all proclaiming to be. You know,
yes.
there can only be one. So choose which one you all want to bow down to. If that's your philosophy and theory, choose your alpha male in your friend group because everybody else knows that's bullshit and we're all just there to help each other because that's how society progresses. There can be
Uh,
no roads if the
yeah,
doctors don't help the people who make the roads, and the doctors can't get to the hospital if the roads aren't built. We need to help each other. It doesn't matter your status or your in life. You need that community to build each other up.
it's wild to me how the libertarian mind works, and how it permeates into like other aspects of culture. Because they'll
Hmm.
guarantee if you ask those people about paying their taxes, they'll be like, taxation is theft. And you're like, oh, okay, I see what it is. You are selfish.
Yeah.
You are narcissistic. You are, you know, I struggle, you know, I'm going to try to not use like diagnostic, like DSM
Yeah. Yeah.
diagnoses to talk about just people who are assholes and are selfish, because narcissism is a very specific set of
Yeah. Yeah.
behaviors that
Traits. Yeah.
traits, but they are assholes. You could just say that
Yeah.
you do not care about the people around you, nor can you pretend to be the one. Like, why would we turn to you in a time of struggle if you've proven that you only care about yourself in times of peace? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, forget about it. So I think, like, as you're talking about the alpha male, why is there not some sort of UFC type tournament where it's literally called alpha male and it's like, hey, if you guys really want to find out who the, and if you are the winner, then you can refer to yourself as
Mm.
the alpha male. I'm happy not to take the title, but if you're so strong, if you feel so strongly about being an alpha male, let's find out who the true alpha male is. Like on pay-per-view Sunday, we will find out who the alpha male is, and then just have these weak YouTube, you know, keyboard warriors, these guys who set up fake podcast mics in front of them so that they can talk like they're some sense of authority. You put them in front of people. Like years ago, there was a whole like internet thing where that guy Uwe Boll, who made all those shitty video game movies,
Oh yeah. And he
challenged
he fought his
he
hecklers or
fought
whatever.
his
Yeah.
online critics. He challenged them to a boxing match. I get it; it's dumb and like, you know, to promote it as like a physical violence thing, and you know, but the capitalist world would eat this shit up. I'm saying, like, how do we make a little scratch off of this stuff? You know, we could get all these dorks to like compete, like have alpha male Olympics, and it's like you it's like, all right, you're the alpha male of uh of you know, podcast lighting. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
because I know you thought about it. I know you thought about which angle is better for you. I know you thought about where to set up your Elgato Stream Deck. I know you thought about all these YouTube things. So it's like, let's not pretend that you are. Like, it's like the Oscars, you know. We'll have it be like the Alpha Male Awards, and everyone comes up and gives the same speech where they're like, I thank nobody but myself. You
Oh,
know,
that'd be great. So just have an award show of the best alpha male in a certain category, and then at the end they would all die because they were asphyxiated by the Axe body spray. There was just too much chemical in the air. Then
no, there's just like a line of like federal agents outside just enforcing warrants and shit that they all have, because you know they're all fucking creeps. They all have some bullshit that they're doing. It's like, oh, you sell illegal steroids? That's arrest you, arrest you, arrest you. Oh, you traffic women? Arrest you, arrest you. Oh, you sexually assaulted? Arrest. Yeah, you know, like that's all. Just it's almost like a sting at that point. Like when they tell a bunch of criminals that they've won a boat, Have you ever seen those videos where they show up
Oh
to a
yeah, yeah,
conference and it's like,
yeah.
you've won a sweepstakes, and then they get there and it's like, psych, you're arrested. Ugh. What a weird. I do. I wish that. I hope we don't come off as like genuinely vindictive, like this is all for jokes and stuff like that. Because I do wish that like I struggle to think about how sad that kind of
Mhm.
existence is, and like
Yeah.
that amount of mental energy spent deluding on yourself.
I
it's
think it goes
frustrating.
along
I don't know.
with the idea of because we're shit talking right now. We
Sure.
say it's a fun positive podcast, but I think this is one of those examples of the you can't tolerate intolerance,
Hmm.
where it's like it's very much similar to sometimes I'll use the patriarchy to destroy the patriarchy, or I'll
Right.
use like misogynistic terms to get the point across because a lot of people, oh, he's a liberal, whatever it is, a little weak ass liberal. And I remember one time this guy, speaking of Ben Shapiro, he suggested I watch the Ben Shapiro show on YouTube. He was like, hey man, you ever listen to Ben Shapiro? And instead of just going off about all the things that are legitimately wrong with him, I knew that wouldn't work because it's a Stonewall. So I just said, nah, I don't like that guy. He's such a whiny cunt. And
Yeah.
and it like took the wind out of his sails, where it was like whatever argument he would have had against me is gone, because
Yes.
it's like,
Yeah.
oh, you're a PC baby, whatever it is. But it's like he's always complaining about something. It's just, oh, why he's always bitching and moaning. He's some sort of thing he's trying to cancel or whatever it is, and that's
It's
all
their
valid and
kryptonite.
true.
It's
And
their
it's like,
kryptonite.
what are you gonna say back? You can't say
Yeah.
anything back. It's all true, and I'm using language that they understand.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. It's like, the whole concept of like, is it do you take the high road or do you take the low road? I think you've removing yourself from the equation using their terminology. It's also like, I'm not, it's like you're basically saying, I'm not going to argue with you
Yeah,
because it's not worth arguing.
yeah,
And that's got to feel worse to them in some way. But I also like they say you shouldn't, don't punch Nazis. I'm like, no, punch a Nazi. That's
yeah,
good. Please punch Nazis. If
yeah,
someone is openly and like, attesting violence and all kinds of horrible shit, like you're right to not treat them reasonably. Like there's a certain amount of positivity that comes from disengaging and being like, I don't want to engage. But if you're being bombarded with something and it's, yeah, if someone's in threatening violence,
yeah,
there's a certain amount of like self-defense that is required. And
yeah,
fighting evil is good. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like
I have this.
I never get, like, if you don't think it's evil, you're part of the evil, like that shit always gets me.
There's some like hipster graffiti on a building near me,
Mm.
where it's all done pretty or whatever it is, and the graffiti has "Love is never violence," and I don't know why I had this like visceral reaction in my brain that was like, killing Nazis in World War II was love for humanity. Like
Yeah.
sometimes violence is the answer. Is violence is love. If somebody threatens a loved one of mine, out of love for them, I will defend them. I will
Right.
fight whoever it is. So if there's some guy who says we need to eliminate the Jews and they're marching down Main Street, by all means, violence can be love. Punch that
Yeah.
dude in the face.
It's the perceived violence, because it's also like, that person, it's so hard because like society and like like the American society of like everybody's out for themselves and nobody cares about anybody else has kind of created a world where people are okay with so many horrible things that
Yeah,
not being okay with a horrible thing is almost like a form of protest. Like,
yeah,
it's like, hey, if you believe that you should let children starve, that's kind of evil. That's evil. That's
yeah,
bad. You're not as good as you protest to yourself as you attest to be. So it's like, how do you stay in, like, because I don't wish violence on anybody. I don't want there to be violence. I would love for there to be some sort of utopian idea where all of a sudden one day everyone realizes that borders are made up and we're on a thin layer of atmosphere that's like paper thin,
Yeah.
around a planet that we are slowly burning off and killing everything inside that little layer, because that's all we get. We only get that little layer. We don't get the whole planet. We get that thin little whatever.
Yeah.
That's all we get is that thin little space. And I hope, like, if I could snap my fingers, it'd be all of a sudden one day. I don't even want that. I don't even want the change to happen. My wish would be like, I want everyone to be fully aware of what's going on to fix it.
Hmm.
And then you realize that humanity is divided based on purely like tribal, primitive kind of lizard brain shit, where it's like, it's kind of unintelligent. It's like dumb, like to have certain points of view where it's like, it's stupid. It's narrow focused, and it's only because you believe in some sort of magic that doesn't exist. You believe in some sort of unprovable kind of cultish thinking, some sort of magical thinking that takes you down this road of
Hmm.
like, I'm willing to burn up this thing so I can have more dollars. It's like, well, what's a dollar? Oh, a thing I made up in my mind. You
There
know?
was a I have this buddy told me the story one time to show how ridiculous the idea of tribalism is.
Hmm.
Is he said he was over in England, and he's an American dude. He's an American black guy, and he was over there, and there was a guy was a tourist, also from America. Was a white guy, and he had a Confederate flag hat, and he said the guy came up to him and started chatting with him, and wouldn't leave. And he was like, "Oh man, it's so good to just talk to another American here." He was willing to change his beliefs because he wanted familiarity and a tribalism with this other American, even though if they were back in the
Wow.
States, he would never talk to this random black guy. He would never go up and say, "Hey, let me share a beer with you." Like,
Yeah.
no, he was like, "Oh, there's too many English people over here. I need to talk to another American."
I I I can't. For me, the funniest thing about, like, every time someone gets really specific about something like that divides, oh, I don't like them because they I'm a Miami Dolphins football fan,
Yeah.
and I lived in New York City, and I would wear Dolphins stuff. And I remember being on the subway, and a guy was wearing a Denver Broncos jersey. Also, not the city in which we exist, right? Like, we are existing in a separate environment. And that guy starts trash talking to me. And meanwhile, at that time, both our teams were like the worst in the NFL. And I looked at him and I was like, Doug, the stakes could not be lower for whatever it is that you're arguing about. Like, but you're desperate for a us versus them energy. Like you're so desperate to have something to fight for, that you're looking for something to fight against.
Yeah.
And it's like, what do you mean? I have a cartoon dolphin on my shirt. That's a Brian Regan joke where he's like walking through the Dallas airport and he's like, oh, looks like we got a Dolphins fan here. It's like, huh, my kids gave it to me. And he's like, am I going to get into a fight because I'm wearing a t-shirt with a cartoon dolphin on it? It's like, this is dumb. It's so, and whenever I think about that, I always think about that joke of like, oh, is this your cartoon dolphin?
Yeah.
Is your cartoon dolphin Elon Musk's Tesla Cybertruck? Is that your thing? It's like, is that your cartoon dolphin? And on a big enough scale, that's how entire governments are built. That's how entire
Yeah.
economies are built. Where it's like, oh, it's just cartoon dolphins all the way down. Oh
Yeah,
man,
it's like the Jerry Seinfeld joke when he said he talks about how players in baseball get traded all the time,
yeah.
and he's like, "You're rooting for laundry. You could have one roster of entirely human beings get traded, and another roster come in. You're still going to root for that team. It's not that the people on the team that you were rooting for; it's the uniform they were wearing. You're rooting for laundry."
You're rooting for laundry. That's a great look. We talk about positivity on this podcast, and we've done a lot of venting today, which I to a certain extent is healthy, but I also don't want to fixate on it, if that makes sense. I
Yeah,
don't want to. I don't want to. I'm in therapy. I was talking to my therapist. My wife's in therapy. We're talking. We share notes. Like we talk about our. What we talk about in therapy. I don't feel like it's shameful to discuss it. It's private. I never say
yeah,
that you should share it. But my wife was talking about some of the cognitive fallacies, or what is it called? The cognitive something, I forget the word, but it's like the mistakes in thinking that get you to reinforce bad habits instead of good ones. And
Mhm.
one of them is rationalization. I no way am I rationalizing what we just talked about as positive for the world, but there's that momentary like piece you get venting about something, but I don't want to lean into the vent as the good thing. What I'm realizing now is that you can kind of take the vent we've just did today to help us process the internet a little bit more
Yeah.
safely, a little bit more in a more healthy way. Because I'm
Mhm.
not like letting anger get to you is dangerous,
Yeah.
and you get people like the alpha males and the incels, and when you let anger be your filter. So I would love to pivot a little bit because I'm sorry we've kind of spent a lot of time venting about sort of these sort of things. There's enough of that in here, but how do we then take this energy of the discovery made that we're just rooting for laundry, or
Mhm.
some people just really love cartoon dolphins? How do we move forward in the world taking that idea so that we don't engage in the vent, we don't like
I think
engage,
the best
filter the anger?
the best way is I think is to show the larger community that we're a smaller community where it's for instance talk to that guy who was trying to get me to watch Ben Shapiro, and I explained to him, he just whines all the time. Is there anything of substance that he's actually, is there any
Right.
positivity that he's giving to the world other than just
Mm-hmm.
complaining? And then we can, have more discussions about, why it's okay. Then, for instance, one of the, he was spouting anti-trans points. And I
Sure.
said, do you, what do you like to do for fun? How do you want to live your life? I
Right.
see you have tattoos on your body. You have an ear piercing. Do you think that somebody should
Right.
tell you what to do, how to decorate your body? Because that's what it is. That's what you know. When you take all the flesh off of somebody and it's just their bones and their skeletal muscle, like that museum that has just the,
Yes. Yeah.
and it's like, is that person
Scandal
black?
noted, because that guy there's I remember going to see the bodies exhibit. I thought it was super fascinating, and then a bunch of stories came out about how he got
Oh
all those
yeah, yeah,
bodies.
yeah,
It's kind of fucked up, but you're 100% right in that at a certain point we're all that's the thing, is that being a medical person, I fully understand what you're saying. Like
yeah.
we're
Where it's
all
like,
we're all you know
you can't tell if that person was black. You can't tell if that person was white. You can't tell if that person was, trans or, cisgender or whatever it was. And that goes along with another thing. I told him the story about, I think it was Miriam Margolyes. Do you know her, the actress? She was
yes,
the older British lady, but
yeah,
she was, I think she was in Australia talking to Aborigines who were the one spirit. I forgot what they call themselves, but
hmm,
they were born male, but they uh, uh, put themselves out as female, and some of them still had beards. And she says, why don't you pluck? I get beard hairs. Why don't you pluck those out? And they were like, it doesn't matter. This is all just decoration.
right. It's all
It's
it's
just
like yeah.
it's like it doesn't matter what think of me as the what's beneath this, not to sound soul and spiritual or whatever it is, but the brain processes in a person are who they are. It
Yes.
doesn't matter what's on the skin or what kind of clothing you wear, whatever it is.
Yeah. As a secular person, I fully admit that science doesn't know where your consciousness comes from. Why is
Hmm.
my meat different than your meat?
Hmm.
Right? Like the structures are all the same. It's just a big lump of cholesterol and lightning. That's all it is. It's literally just that.
Hmm.
Our meat is the same. Why does my meat think this way and
Hmm.
identify as Mike Mercadal, and why is your meat think your way and identify as Will Watkins? We don't know. Again,
Yeah.
we also, to circle back around, you know, have only had anesthesia for 100, 150 years. So it's like we will figure it out or not or whatever it is. But
Yeah.
the fact that my meat is different than yours is not in contention.
Hmm.
We have different thinking. We have we have different consciousnesses. So whatever that is should be respected as like part of the
Yeah.
person. Not like, it's like, oh, my consciousness identifies differently than the meat it is in. It's like, okay, I don't have an opinion on why would I have, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't, It
Hmm.
should not factor into my value for you. That, remember, it goes back to that empathy versus sympathy. I don't have to put
Yeah.
myself in your shoes to see a human being. You
Yeah.
know, I assume everyone who I see walking around, that's a human being. You know what I mean? Like, that's a person. Like, it's
But
hard, whatever. You get what I'm saying.
yeah, yeah. I mean, to the point, to justify the venting is that a lot of it is a side example. I
Yeah.
cited this example with this guy where it's like you're allowed to air grievances, because if you
Mm.
don't air those grievances, it's going to build up inside of you and it's going to
Yeah. Yeah.
ferment, and you're eventually going to project uh, what are valid feelings onto somebody who has nothing to do with the origin
Exactly.
of those feelings. So it's good to vent, to get the
Yeah.
words out, to clear your throat chakra, as they would say in yoga. Uh,
But every
but
culture would have a way of doing, even like
yeah,
the male cult, the male whatever, back in the day. What was it that they used to have those male retreats, and they would have
yeah,
the around the campfire, and you have to hold the talking stick, that
yeah.
bullshit. You remember that? Where every tribe has a version of airing of grievances. Every tribe has a
Mhm.
festivus, and every tribe has an airing of grievances that you have to process, or you get like any authoritarian or kind of like fascistic structure that has one guy at the top and he's the only one that gets to talk, will eventually be overthrown by the other people, where it's like, I need a way to talk, like, that's that there should be more than one person that gets to have their venting done. and
Yeah,
and
I
it's
think that goes
crazy.
to the larger theme of community, in that I think we talked about in one of the previous ones about the viral story about the did we I don't know if we did, about the
Mm,
guy who left a big city and went to Oklahoma to live with rural people,
mm.
because he was a self-proclaimed white supremacist. Then he got to this place where it was nothing but white people, and he was like, "These are the most boring milk toast people I've ever met in my life. I need to renounce white supremacy and go back and eat some food with a spice,
Out
because
of
this is
boredom.
out of boredom."
Yeah.
Where it's that thing of like, oh yeah, if you're just so insular and you don't have anybody to inform your opinions who is of a different mind than you, and to have that pushback where they can vent to you, or have maybe even violent words to
Mm.
shock you out. I remember when I first started doing comedy the first year, I was dared by a group of fellow comics to go on stage, and we all decided we were going to use the N word in our sets. And then afterwards, uh, uh, a person like lit into me, like completely, and like with very violent words. And it took that beating to be like, yeah, fuck, I'm not gonna ever do that again.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
I needed somebody to whoop my ass. I mean, not to sound like a boomer, but like, you need to get your ass whooped from time to time.
There needs to be the correction, and this kind of go to like bring it all full circle. Like, there's a certain amount of my wife just texted me while we were talking, cognitive distortions. So
Yeah.
it's called cognitive distortions, and one of the things that you have is that you we have a lot of self defense mechanisms that are built up over time that aren't healthy, that you don't know they're healthy until someone points it out to you. And that's kind of what that is, like a correction, where like the one that sticks in my head is the rationalization, because we talked about it, because you can just like, if you could be like, yeah, I deserve this ice cream because I had a rough day, or I deserve this whatever, you're like, yeah, I'm in a bad situation because of insert race or insert ethnic group,
Hmm.
so I deserve to hate them. And you can
Hmm.
rationalize all these things in your brain, and it's distorting the reality. And
Hmm.
one of my problems with all of that stuff is it boils down to just a classic reality check. Who's checking you? Once you are aware of something, you're responsible for it.
Hmm.
So if you catch yourself like me, where I find out that, oh, my weak spot in my diet is that I eat ice cream every night, it's like, oh, I have the awareness of it now, and it's now my responsibility. That reality check happened internally, where I'm like, oh, right, ice cream every day is gonna make me fat. I'm gonna get calorie. I'm gonna have too many calories. I'm gonna do it. But if I justify it in my mind, being like, I have a hard day, well, you know what? Then you start looking for that hard day.
Yeah.
You start looking for the reason.
Mm.
You know, you start looking for the hate. You start looking for the justification of your bad habit, and that's where the reality check, the external reality check comes in, where it's like, hey, join me in the real world for a minute, where your justifications for your actions only matter on a fucked up spectrum. Like you're not
Mm.
right. You're not part of the community. You're not part of society. You're not part of humanity when you choose to behave a certain way. And the big picture, which is kind of what, like, that self-actualization that we're all
Mhm.
subconsciously chasing, that whole, like, I feel fulfilled as a human being, whatever that means. I don't even know what that means. But in the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, there's
Mhm.
physical safety, all these things that you have to get before you can get to self-actualization, and people are trying to shortcut by giving you
Yeah.
some sort of, like, cheat code to get to that,
Mhm.
by claiming I'm an alpha male, I'm a white, my race is the best, all these things. And it's really just shortcuts to that self-actualization without doing all the steps you have to, like, be aware of, and do self introspection and
Yeah.
work to get to, that's that it once you see it, it's hard to unsee it, because then you're like, ooh, that guy is, what a poor guy. I wish he could not be this way, because he is so insecure, or so fearful of the world around him, or so afraid to abandon wrong thinking because he's been
Mhm.
thinking it so long.
Mhm.
He
I
knows.
think I think to take some more terminology from therapy, where it's people oftentimes will act in emotional mind and not the wise mind. Because you got the emotional mind, the rational mind, and in between is
Mhm.
the wise mind.
Right.
This is the immediate reaction. This is the you know my wants and my needs, and then how can I achieve both?
Yes.
Or some
Yeah.
sort of combination of both. And if it's it's all this certain demographic is the problem, and it's like, well, what's the rationale? Is it actually because there are CEOs and corporate interests who are taking money away from your pocket and then
Right.
blaming it on this group? Is you
Is it
find
because
that
private equity has forced us all to have to reevaluate what a home means, and shit, like,
yeah,
of course that's going to have ripple effects in people's psyches and people's thought processes.
I feel as though a thing that would help a lot of people, and I think a lot of people should reach for this, is post nut clarity.
Post.
I feel like if anybody is about to burn a cross, like tell them to rub one out,
Oh
and
no.
then afterwards they'll be like, "Why am I wearing this ridiculous outfit?
What, this is yeah, I don't even
Oh
like
my
white.
God,
I'm a
it's
summer. This is
it's
terrible.
2 a.m. I gotta go to work in 3 hours."
Ah, man. The idea of post nut clarity is something, it's so true, but remember the lady in the 90s who was like the health person, who was like, yeah, masturbation's fine, and everybody lost their fucking minds. Remember
Oh
that
yeah,
shit?
Dr.
Where, like,
Ruth.
no, it was a lady. Oh God, she was like the attorney, not the attorney general. What is the
Oh
health
yeah, yeah,
official in
I know
the
what
in
you're
the
talking about.
Clinton White
Yeah,
House? Yeah,
yeah,
where someone was like, "Is masturbation okay?" And she's like, "Yeah, it's fine. It's a perfectly natural thing." And everybody lost their mind, because it's like, no, nobody masturbates. Meanwhile, everyone is deluding themselves if they don't think of masturbation as, like, a natural thing. Like, are you crazy?
yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe
it's
that's the start of all of our problems, is because nobody has
we
the post nut clarity.
nobody people get out there for your own health, please, for the world, please. Also, we've had enough people jerking off in front of other people to last a lifetime. Do it, private, whatever gets you going. Nut first, think later.
Do you think it would be good legislation if we passed a law that said between the hours of, between 2 and 2:30 every single day, like a siesta, like the Spanish do, but instead of napping, everybody has to rub one out?
How long before somebody capitalizes on it and starts has a business centered around jerk off stations or whatever? Like,
Oh my God, it would be like at the airport. There's like the breastfeeding station, and then right next to it is the Wacka Hut.
the whack. Oh, so great. But again, there's so much taboo around it. Like, it's hard to explain. What a interesting. I wish there was like an expert that we could talk to about post nut clarity and about what that does to you. Like, because there's certain times where you need an endorphin release, and I'm sure this is not a gender specific thing where you
Oh
masturbate
yeah,
just for medicinal reasons, where you're like, but then the spectrum of addiction and the whole kind of concept of like, well, what are you rationalizing? We're like, I've had a hard day, I'm gonna jerk off, and then all of a sudden you're on the subway in front of people, you're like, I've had a hard day,
I
it's
gotta
like,
get the evil out. Ah.
which New York, any New York resident will tell you happens. It's something that happens in your day. Greatest city in the world. Look away. You know, that's one of my favorite New York stories of when I first moved to New York. Like I was like a weekend. I was like a baby New Yorker. I just moved there, and I got onto a subway train. I was like, I got the doors open, and you walk in, and you know how you like if you've lived in New York for any amount of time, you can or you can feel when something has just happened. Something there's a vibe of something is either just happened or is happening, and you walk on the car. And I'm talking about the empty train car. The empty
Yeah,
one
yeah,
we all know smells like whatever, but
yeah,
the the one where you walk in and everybody is like frozen and like not chilling, they're frozen and like pretending that something is not happening. And then
yeah.
I looked and I turned and I see in the corner this guy jerking off, and my first impulse was like, hey man, put that away, because in the ER that shit happens all the time, where you get people who come in and they're mentally unwell, and they have things, and there's a moment of privacy, and their first impulse to make themselves feel better is to jerk off, or for whatever reason they start, and you have to like, and it's not like some young attractive nurse that walks into the room, it's me. And I'm like, dude, hey, put that away. I did that on the subway car, and the guy, like, I guess I broke his invisibility spell where he realized suddenly people were interacting with him, and he's like, and he just kind of puts it away, and he goes into the next train car, and I'm like, oh, this is what life was like in New York City, baby. That was my first like week in New York. I'm not saying
I
to
bet
do that.
I bet that homeless guy, despite his situation, makes great choices.
he's got he's got permanent post nut clarity. He's
He's
just
just like
constantly buffing himself like it's a fucking RPG. He's
he's
got like,
like it's not that I'm homeless, it's that I won't participate in this corporate CEO system. I'm not, I know better than you people.
in the land of the blind, the man with one eye is king.
And he literally has one eye.
And he's got one eye. Oh,
He's
so
back at the
gross.
one eye.
Oh man, you gotta laugh. I do. Man, I love doing this show with you, man. We've talked about a lot of shit today.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
is so
yeah.
fun. Thank you, everybody. We're gonna. I don't want to close on masturbation on a subway train, but we are going to go
Why?
into our
Why?
dislike.
Because society doesn't want you to close on masturbation on the subway? Are
No,
you?
because masturbation is the opening. You understand what I'm saying? It is the start of good decision making, not the end. Uh, um, I look, another perfect episode. Will, how have these been
It's
perfect every time?
it's
So good.
phenomenal. I amaze myself. You amaze
Sometimes
me.
you amaze me too, bro. I'm just trying to look like you. I'm just
I'm
trying
just
to
trying
look
to
like
look like you, man. I'm
you.
trying to act like you.
I'm trying to be like you. We gotta talk about. So thank you, everybody, for watching. Let's summarize the show for people, so
Hmm.
I can use it for social media content to contribute to the environment in which we
Hmm.
exist, capitalistically. We talk about three things on the show: mind, body, and community. Um, so let's talk about this. We started off, we talked about getting sleep schedule, adapting to the choices that you make, that you have to inherently do some rough things to work into your life, and
Hmm.
sometimes those decisions are good and sometimes they're bad. I think that the listen to your body feels like we've done it before, but that's a very powerful message, even when it comes
Yeah.
to, I guess, even when it comes to dealing with people like the alpha male. Like, if you like, recognizing red flags is also part of like listening to your body, because sometimes your brain tricks you into thinking it's a good idea, but your
Yeah.
body is like I think that's a symptom of anxiety is where like your body knows something's wrong
Yeah.
and your brain is like, no, it's fine. And enough of that will like poison you in some way. So listening to your body, even when your mind is pumping out cognitive
Mm,
distortions, I
yeah.
feel like is a good thing. Like trust your gut feels
Yeah, I was
like
about to say, trust your gut, and that rationalization is the second thought, because like they say, like anger is the second emotion.
hmm,
Like, what are you actually angry about?
yeah.
What is the first feeling you had? So sometimes, yeah, trust that first instinct.
If it's fear, be afraid. Let it get you. That's it. I hate to say it, but I got it from a first episode of Lost. You ever see Lost? Where this guy, he was like, "You let it get you for 5 seconds, and then we move on." And then I was like, "Oh, that feels like an interesting experiment." So if
Yeah,
I'm sad, I'm gonna be sad. If something happens and I'm angry, I'm gonna be angry for 5 seconds, and then I'm gonna move on because it's like
yeah,
I'm not gonna deny the feeling because then you just keep bottling it down. But I'm gonna be like, I'm angry. Why am I angry? This is why I'm angry. Let's move on. I'm
yeah,
sad. Why am I sad? Is it again? This sure to an extreme. Everything is toxic, but that's the trust your gut. Feels like an important thing, an
yeah.
important takeaway from today, especially when dealing with people who are are detrimental to society, like poor, like they're making things worse.
Mm,
So it's like don't contribute and like engage in a healthy way to
mm,
for to fight, but only if you're able, like only if it
yeah,
helps or if it out of love.
yeah.
Oh, and don't take Benadryl. That's
Oh
enough.
yeah.
That's another body one. Don't take Benadryl. There's other better stuff out there. Talk to an allergist or some sort of talk to your doctor
Hmm.
about alternatives to Benadryl. Benadryl is bad for you. Um, and people take it like fucking candy. It's crazy.
Hmm.
And then for the mind, I feel like it contributes. We talked about Dino Nuggies. That was the one thing I really was talking about.
Yeah.
Like don't outgrow your joy. Don't think that being an adult
Mm.
excludes joy, and
Hmm.
finding healthy ways to experience joy is let them call you childish, people let them judge, whatever it is, because your version of adulthood doesn't have to match anybody else's as long
Yeah.
as you're successfully taking care of yourself. Your bills are if your bills are paid, tell them to shut the fuck up. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
if your bills are paid, you're living life right. If you and even if you're not, and if you're contributing to society in some way and you need help or whatever, you're allowed to make those decisions for yourself as long as you're not putting your, like, I guess don't go into debt over some Yu-Gi-Oh cards, but if you can afford them, don't outgrow your joy is what I'm saying. Don't age
Yeah.
out of joy.
I always say if the thing that makes you happy doesn't harm yourself or other people, keep doing it. You
Yeah,
know,
for sure.
enjoy. Listening to Taylor Swift at midnight isn't harming anybody. It might make you sleepy in the morning, but if you're willing to make that sacrifice and it's not going to be debilitating, that's a reasonable thing to do if it's going to bring you joy. Going to a
Yeah.
midnight showing of Star Wars or a Marvel movie or whatever it is, that's fun. It's a fun adventure.
That one's a little autobiographical because you and I have both done that. We've done that
Oh yeah,
together. It is a joy. What a fun thing to do. And like, I do, well, that does come back around to the community aspect of it.
yeah.
But I want to say also in terms of the mind, remember your awareness of something should inform your actions about it. Right.
Hmm.
So like if you're aware of something, you are now responsible for it. To make change, or even just to like stopping a bad habit is a form of change. You
Yeah.
don't have to do anything. To make progress, you just have to stop walking backwards first. You know what I mean? Like you got to stop taking steps back. Standing still is progress if you've been moving back the whole time. So
Mm.
so
Mm.
that's a good one. Let me put that
Yeah,
on a
you gotta
t-shirt.
you gotta get that on pictoquote.com.
Picto quote, meme generator, one of those inspirational. Am I aging
Yeah,
myself by quoting a meme from 2010?
no, I think we should take that quote and put it over like a picture of Killian Murphy from PE Blinders, and then maybe we get started forming the alpha
Yeah,
males.
put Tom Hardy there. We just start like whichever
Oh,
alpha male.
wouldn't that be great guerrilla warfare if we just took all the like Peaky Blinders, that alpha male stuff, and we just put like a quote of like women should have the right to control their own body or whatever it is.
Hey, you're because people always put like bullshit quotes of fate of these guys where it's like, hey, we could do that too. If your meme is the truth, so is ours.
Yeah, yeah,
They're both equal. Um,
yeah.
your guy not only said be a lion amongst the sheep, but also give women their rights. you know, don't don't
Shit,
harass women.
I might start doing that. That's not a bad
I think
idea.
we should send him to me. We'll share him together. Send him. We'll post him at zerosonheroes.com. But yeah, these are all great for the mind and body. And then for the community, one of the things you talked about, and we talked about that spotter that saved the person. We talked about spotters in real life. Take your
Yeah.
awareness of these things, and sometimes people need to be told, and in gentle ways, you can communicate things to the people you care about the most first, right?
Yeah.
Your community, your central core of people, which should be people who are not evil. They share your view. They share your viewpoints. Even if it's in your relationships, where like
Mm-hmm.
the whole concept of marriage being difficult thing, like life is difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Life is hard to deal with. Having a partner that is going to augment your life as opposed to this traditional idea of, not even traditional, this like wrong old thinking of everything is like a fucking mission, everything is a problem. It's like, don't let that be one of your problems. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't force that old thinking on your current situation, because it's we've moved past it.
Mm-hmm.
We're not using leeches anymore. We're using anesthesia now to do surgeries. Like, don't continue to do the wrong thing just because it was the traditional way to do it.
I think also for community, I want to add in having your community doesn't just mean the people who are currently in your community. It could also mean if somebody has a toxic idea that you reach out to them. For instance, that guy who was, I was able to convince the guy who was anti-trans and pro-toxic shit that, I included him in and said, these are, what are some aspects of your personal body and your choice that you've made that you wouldn't want anybody to take away from you. So you can expand your community to include people who had differing opinions and try
Mhm.
to convince them to be more enlightened, maybe, if we could say that without being pretentious.
Right. Like to. I always say that zoom out a little bit.
Yeah.
Zoom out from your tribe. Zoom out from your problems. Zoom out from what your perceived problems are.
Hmm.
Like, zoom out. Remember, we live in the thin layer of air around the earth, not on it.
Yeah.
That's like, join me in the real world for
Yeah.
a moment, and then we can figure things. Then we can go. You know, you like a cartoon horse on your jersey. I like a cartoon dolphin on my jersey. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, but zoom out first. Like, all of
Yeah.
this is purely artificial,
Yeah.
manufactured.
I think zoom out and find the commonality between the two of you, or
Yeah,
the group of you.
yeah,
For instance, the guy who was a Confederate hat wearing dude in Europe was like, we have a common thing, which is we're both American. And it's like, hey, look at that. Maybe that guy comes home and he's like,
right. Yeah.
maybe it is that we're all really just Americans. And
Or that it's like, oh, is American also a little category that I put myself
yeah,
into? Like that globalization of thought is interesting. Like, what is that? That travel is like the enemy of ignorance, or something like
yeah,
that. Or
yeah.
I forget the actual quote, but it's like, if you want to destroy your prejudices, go travel the world, because then you realize, like, I love the term the global majority for saying non-white people, because white people, like, every map we look at is Eurocentric. Every globe we see that we look at, it's like, you realize, oh, the globe, there's more non-white people in the world than white people, but our Western culture is so hyper focused on
Mhm.
white culture, white existence, European colonization of the global majority, and it's
Yeah,
like, oh, right. Yeah,
yeah.
the global majority doesn't give a fuck about the American football. They care about soccer. We have to deal with that as a nation.
Yeah, one time there was I got to a thing back in the day when I used to really be big into Facebook arguments. As the somebody said something about like white men are responsible for the majority of terrible things in the world. And I said, what about the men in Saudi Arabia? What about the men in Africa? What about the men in China and Asia? And it's like, you could just say men. I
You
would
could
agree
just
with
say,
that.
man, yeah,
But to
yeah.
say like
Generally
white men
speaking, yeah.
is like excluding most of the world.
Zoom out, bud.
Yeah,
We've been horrible the whole time. All of
yeah.
us, the whole world still has horrors.
You need to get rid of the skin and just look at the muscles of the
Look at
people
the
who are oppressing
meat.
you. Look at
Yeah,
the meat of the oppressors is what
the
you need to
meat
do.
of the oppressor. And if that is not the message of today's show,
Yeah.
look at the meat of your oppressor. Hashtag Louis C.K. The um the thank you everybody. I want to say I like what do we take with us today? All of these things that we can kind of like if any of this helps you, that's kind of great. I mean, I'm going to try and take some of the zoom out thinking, some of the
Yeah.
not outgrowing my joy, and
Yeah.
and not encouraging that in others too. When someone puts down their fun thing, it's like, don't insult your Pokemon card collection, don't insult the things to give you, don't insult your X-Men 97 watching, don't
Yeah.
insult your reconnecting with some youthful joy in your life. Don't I want to take that's going to be my focus
Don't
for this.
insult and don't feel embarrassed.
Yeah, there's no shame in that game. Thank you everybody for watching. You can follow me at Mike Mercadal. That's how you spell my name. At William A. Watkins on social medias. You can just search those on Instagram and TikTok and all that stuff. At Zeros on Heroes for all of the historical archives of our stuff, because you can go and find them there.
The
The
ancient
audio,
scrolls.
the ancient texts of our world, and also go out. We used to say this all the time on our show. The
Go
go
out and
out.
be heroic.
Go out and be heroic. I think that redefining what heroic is kind of a personal thing, but it still applies. I think
Yeah.
it still applies. If you want to go be the hero, yeah, go be heroic and follow that impulse. I miss saying it. So
Yeah.
go out and be heroic. Hey, Will, looking good.
I'm just trying to look like you, bro.
Just trying to look like you. Thank you everybody for watching, and